I'll declare the April 13th, 2015 City Council meeting to be in order. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I guess I should have asked first, are we ready to go with the video? I see a thumbs up. Thank you. Next, let's approve. Well, we'll not approve the agenda. You want to talk about the public announcements?
Sure. The first public announcement, we'd like to invite everyone to the Medicine Take Back Day. That'll be held here at Victoria City Hall on Saturday, April 25th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. If you've not participated in one of these before, it's an opportunity to safely dispose of medications, whether it be prescription or over-the-counter drugs, expired, you just don't need them. Bringing them in for the sheriff's office to safely dispose of them keeps them out of our water supply and out of the hands of those that would use them as they are not intended. There are permanent drug take-back locations at Carver County, the city of Waconia, and the city of Chanhassen, but we will have staff on site again Saturday, April 25th from 10 to 2, and right here in our own community to make that disposal convenient. So there's no charge for that, and everyone is welcome regardless of where they live.
The water?
Yes. The other public announcement we have tonight is that the City of Victoria is participating in the National Mayor's Water Conservation Challenge. It's from April 1st to April 30th. You can go to mywaterpledge.com to sign up, and basically what you do is you pledge ways that you can reduce your water use, and you can learn tips about how you might do that if you don't have ideas of your own already on that subject. And we have placed in the past, the City of Victoria has placed in that competition for the amount of conservation pledged. We've come in both in second place and in seventh place. And so we would welcome people to go to that website and to participate in the challenge.
I mean, we're not California, certainly, but excessive water usage is a problem for us, for our community. So this would be a symbolic, at least a symbolic gesture in the right direction. Next, we'll adopt the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda?
There are not, other than to note that under visitor presentations, Kelly Quist is not able to join us tonight, but plans to do so in the future.
Okay. We have a motion then to adopt the agenda.
I move we adopt the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We've adopted the agenda. The next item is the open forum. It's an opportunity for citizens to address the council on topics not on the current agenda. Does anybody wish to address the council? Seeing none, we'll move to the visitor's presentation. We'll start with Senator Julian Ortman. If you'd sit, Julian, yeah, then the audio will be picked up.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, Mr. Mayor and members, it is a pleasure to be here. This is my first trip to your beautiful...
I'm getting the high sign. You got to use the microphone.
How's that? Is that better?
Yes.
You're getting a
Good.
thumbs up.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me here this evening again. I just wanted to thank you. And really, the first time here at your new city council and chambers, your city hall, it is just beautiful. The library is such a great addition and so much for you all to be proud of for the future of your city. It's just really a great improvement. So my congratulations to you all. I wanted to give you just a brief update on legislative business. We have about 5 weeks left of the legislative session to go. This is a budget year, and honestly, the Minnesota Senate, unfortunately, has not made a lot of progress towards its budget. I think a lot will happen over the next couple of weeks. I serve on the Higher Ed Committee, which is one of those committees that puts its bill out first. We still haven't seen that bill. It won't come out until tomorrow. So there will be 9 big omnibus packages that build the Minnesota Senate's budget. The House will do theirs. There are more packages than the 9 from the Senate. And then they will all meet in conference committee. So you can see we still have an awful lot to do. The Senate has not really put out its budget proposal. So I can't sit here today and tell you what will be in those proposals. You may or may not know that these committees work in a way where the proposals are heard on a regular basis, but they are just set aside for later consideration, and then the chair of the committee and usually the majority members of these committees will sit down and decide what are they going to put into that bill and what are they going to fund in this particular year, given some of their budget targets. So those conversations have been going on internally with the leadership team over the last couple of weeks. And now, beginning tomorrow, we'll start to see the rollout of their budget proposals, and we will take them up in omnibus fashion. I mean, there will be one big budget package for higher ed or for taxes or for all the different committees that we sit on. And then those budget bills will be sent to the Senate floor. They'll be voted on individually, and then they'll meet in conference. The governor then will weigh in once they're in conference and decide whether or not he supports the funding proposals. So with 5 weeks left in session, you'd think we would be on the swift countdown, but we really have not made as much progress as many of us would like. So a lot of posturing still going on, posturing about whether or not there will be a tax increase for gas taxes for roads and bridges. We don't know that yet, and we don't know what the Senate's position is yet on that. So I wish I had more to update you with, but I'll just say this about transportation. It is a very high priority. I know it is for the residents here in Victoria. It's always been a very high priority for me in my legislative agenda. We've made great accomplishments since I've been serving in the Senate with the expansion of Highway 212 and improvements to Highway 5, among others. Highway 7, 101. I mean, the list goes on and on of the improvements we've made, but there's an even longer list of the improvements yet to be made. In particular, the further expansion of Highway 212 should go out all the way to the South Dakota border. On Wednesday, I'm very happy to say that we will have a hearing in the State Senate Public Safety and Transportation Committee, and we will take up two different proposals for funding that expansion of Highway 212. One will be a direct appropriation, which is a very unpopular way to go about funding roads, or through a bonding bill. A much more feasible way to build and construct Highway 212. The reason being, if you have legislators that are out asking for appropriations for their particular roads, you end up with a food fight, a political food fight about whose road is going to get funded. So years ago, the legislature really set that aside and took the recommendations of our engineers from MnDOT and would fund the projects that we could fund with the priorities set by MnDOT engineers across the state. So they really set the priorities, and as you know, our roads and bridges here in Carver County recently haven't made it into our 20 and 30-year funding plan, according to the engineers. So rather than go for a direct appropriation, we know we're not in the plan. We know we're not going to get the kind of financing we need to build the improvements we need. So Representative Hoppe and I have chief authored a bill for a bonding proposal. In my view, these big highway expansion projects are really suitable candidates for bonding because the bonding bills are for 30-year proposals, and they are for proposals that will benefit the entire region or state, not just one community. So the expansion of Highway 212 is a very good candidate, and that's actually how we funded the original 10-mile piece of 212 is through bonding. So we will have that bonding hearing on Wednesday, and I have invited members of the community to come to the Minnesota State Senate and testify in that committee. You all are very welcome, and we would love to hear from Victoria residents or representatives in that hearing on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. I think the bill will be heard about 3 o'clock. Hopefully you got a notice, Ms. Hokanen, but if not, then it's on its way to. We just learned about this hearing this past Friday. So my hope is that if a bonding bill is taken up this year, that Highway 212 will be included. If we don't have it heard, it can't be included. There may or may not be a bonding bill. It's one of those last-minute things that gets thrown into the pot with all the different posturing to see who wants what and can I have this if you get that kind of negotiation at the last minute. So we're preparing just in case there's a last-minute bonding bill, and we've put this 212 proposal in for that reason. Hopefully it'll get funded either this year or next year. And just a little bit of FYI, I did meet with the folks from the Community Lodge, the Victoria Alliance. I'm aware of their proposal. I've been working with them, asked them to come back to you and get more documented support from the community and hopefully a match, which will then make it more eligible for funding out of the state capitol. So I'm very happy to help you all with your proposals for that project and others. And that's another reason why I'm here, is to see what I can do in service to you, in partnership with you, and in service to your residents. So whether it's the current legislation or some other way that I might be able to facilitate a meeting with the administration, or whatever it is where you're having some challenges with the city, working with the state or with any of the state agencies, I'm also here to help in that regard. And with that, I'll take any questions you might have.
Let me start off. Everybody's favorite whipping boy, of course, is the Met Council. And I know there were at least a couple of initiatives underway earlier in the year to make the Met Council, quote unquote, more responsive to local government. Is there any traction there? Is there anything that we could expect in a positive way?
Well, to be very candid, there are competing proposals to get rid of it. There are many people signing up to eliminate it altogether. There are proposals to make it more accountable through an elected path for its members, or even to get sign off or confirmation through cities and counties. There are so many proposals, but the Minnesota Senate is not going to move on any of them. And so unless you have both chambers working on a proposal, they just don't see the light of day. There's just not enough support at the state capitol for that. And we are in the minority, honestly, here in Carver County, thinking the Met Council is difficult to work with. I know that's a shock, but I would encourage you to come to the state capitol and visit more often to see that it really is, unfortunately, a minority view. It's a view that I share with you, but they have a lot of support, and it will be very difficult to truly change the Met Council. From my point of view, they've well outstripped their mission, and that mission creep is the best way to address the Met Council, is to start to rein in their mission and their statutory authority on a more case-by-case basis, instead of trying to go for a comprehensive fix to the Met Council. I just don't see that happening in this legislative session, and I don't see it happening unless you see a change in the elected officials. One of the problems with it, Mr. Mayor, is that there is not direct accountability even to the legislature. So when they do their budgets, they submit them. The only oversight is through the Metropolitan Government Oversight Commission. It's not even a committee at the state capitol. The commission is a joint commission with House and Senate representatives. They don't meet on a regular basis, and that's really the only oversight body. If you don't live in the 7-county metro area governed by the Met Council, it's really not on your list of priorities as a legislator. And so we are suffering from the fact that we have population from greater Minnesota that doesn't have this as a priority, the 7-county metro area. We have some folks at the Capitol that thinks that they are doing a very fine job with the work that they're doing. So we've got a lot of work to do to educate folks about what that specific mission creep is and where they've exceeded their statutory authority. I think we have to do our work. Rather than to just say, I disagree with the Met Council, I think we have to come up with the whys and the specifics and the hows, and then start to work with them in capping back that authority. And that's one of the ways where I can help. I know that the Met Council also works with many of the administrative agencies, and they are the enforcement arm for the Metropolitan Council. And to the extent that we need to work on some of the enforcement actions, I stand ready to help if I can.
If we had a Republican governor, would it likely be a different outcome?
It wouldn't take too much speculation to think maybe yes.
I understand there was some, sorry if I could,
That's right.
that there's a legal challenge either in the works or being considered that the Met Council is required by, I think, federal law in order to get federal transportation dollars. There has to be some regional transportation authority, or maybe it's anyways. So going away altogether probably isn't likely, but I understand there is some challenge to the fact that it's appointed, not elected. Are you familiar with that, and do you have any comment on whether that has legs or not?
I am not. I know, as I said, there are competing proposals to get rid of it and find ways to get within the authority of this organization. I know that there was even a constitutional amendment drafted at some point that had been introduced in the legislature. So there are multiple approaches to trying to get around this issue, but I think we would be wise to be more specific about what the problems are, identify those problems, and address the problems. I think we'd honestly get further with our opposition to what they're doing.
In other words, good luck.
No, that's really not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, it's hard to read the Met Council authorizing statute. But I encourage those that want to change the Met Council to join me in doing that. And there are ways to change those authorizing statutes so that they can be more responsive and maybe more limited in scope. I think that's the best approach at this point. I've seen so many bills to eliminate them or make them more accountable through elections. I've seen so many over the last 12 years, but we've never really made any progress. So I'm saying maybe we should look at our strategy. And I also wonder if our representative has been here to the city of Victoria. I hear from other cities that she has not been to visit their cities.
Has not. In fact, I didn't even know Gary wasn't still our representative until I found out at a mayor's breakfast Saturday morning.
I see.
She did stop by. Sorry, I haven't had a chance to circle on that. She did stop by at about 3:30 on Friday. So I did have the opportunity to meet her very recently.
Well, we were lucky then.
Well,
That's outrageous.
It's not acceptable. And so I hope that you probably have already invited her to come and speak here.
We discussed it, but we haven't made any plans for that.
Well, I would be very happy to come back to the city of Victoria and hear that presentation and hear your thoughts and concerns that you should prepare and share with her. I would be very happy to come back. And I know if Representative Nash were here, he would say the same thing. I don't see him. He may have been caught in committee, so I hope you'll understand.
Well, maybe we'll get to meet her. Any other questions for Senator Ortman? Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it and really appreciate your kind comments about this facility.
Thank you very much. The only improvement you could have made is if we could have met outside. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Looking around, I don't see Representative Nash, so we'll assume he's about the state's business. Next would be Katie, and the overview on aging. Katie Boone?
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, my name is Katie Boone, and I am the supervisor of planning and promotion at Carver County Public Health. And as such, I've been working with the Carver County Office of Aging for the last 8 years. And what we're going to talk about today is a project that we're taking on countywide. And I'm very pleased to be here today to talk about specifically the city of Victoria and planning for an aging population. I hope you all have a copy of the packet in front of you. And with me today is Jennifer Anderson, and she's a program specialist in public health, and she is assigned to head up the Office of Aging for Carver County. So why plan for an aging population? Well, we've got some changes happening. We're going to have more older residents here in the county and in your city, but they're going to be different than today's seniors. And they're going to have different needs and wants. And what we want to talk about today is, what does this really mean for your city? What opportunities do we have? And what you want to do, as we do as the county, is we want to keep them as community members and also as taxpayers. And so what we're going to talk about is how the Carver County Office of Aging can really help you to identify and meet those needs. So what's the issue? As I look around the room, I see a few baby boomers, but I bet all the rest of you probably have family members or friends or coworkers who are in that age group. Currently, baby boomers are age 51 to 69. And this cohort was born between 1946 and 1964. And it was the longest sustained increased birth rate in the United States. And I'm going to make some general comments. Certainly there are outliers who don't fit this profile, but I want to talk a little bit about how this group of people are different than today's seniors. For people who are 51 to 69 right now, they probably are empty nesters. A lot of them are still working, as I am, but they're healthy. And what we look at with the county is that currently, and this was the estimate in 2013, 9% of our population in the county was over 65. But by 2030, 23% are going to be over 65, and 92% of them are going to be baby boomers. Now, most of the numbers I'm going to talk about today are from the 2010 census or from the American Community Survey 5-year estimate. If you have better numbers for your city, we would really like to have those to put into the profile. So how, oh, I turned it off. Wrong button, sorry. So how will boomers be different than today's seniors? As you think about people you know, a lot of us married later in life, more divorces, fewer children. Those children are more geographically dispersed around the country. We've traveled more outside the United States. Most of us drive. A lot of us handle the finances. We have fewer smokers, and we have more people who have communal living experiences than our parents, either in a dorm or sharing an apartment. We have more women working in more professional jobs. We have higher level of education, as you'll see when I talk about your city. More affluent, more technology savvy. We have 2-income families. Fewer people with pensions, which is different than the past, which is why many people plan to keep working. So I'm going to take a quick look at the city of Victoria. What we've done is develop profiles for all 11 cities as well as the county. And so you have in your packet the profile for the county as a whole, but also the profile we put together for the city of Victoria. So I have taken some of those charts and just made some simple slides to kind of pull the numbers out more specifically. But you can see that 29%, in 2010, 29% of your population was 45 to 64, which was that baby boomer group. Median income is where you really stand out. When you look at people 45 to 64 in 2013, the median income in your city was almost double that of the median income in the state of Minnesota. But when you look at the 65 plus, you can see that it's less than half of that. And this is really important when you think about how these community members, your residents in the city of Victoria, support your local businesses. Because when people have higher incomes also, they can afford a larger house and pay more property taxes. When we look at home ownership is where you really shine. With baby boomers, 95% of them in 2010 owned their own homes. And the average in the county is 65%. So you can see you have a very high home ownership rate. Now, I don't know your median house value, but when average person sells their house, they like to keep half of that money to put into a new, smaller property, but also half of it to live on the equity. So with 95% of your boomers owning, they're probably going to want to invest rather than rent. Education level is another area where you see a big difference between the baby boomers and those 65 plus. The average bachelor and graduate degree percentage in Carver County is 42%. So you're once again 50% higher in that as well. So what are the issues for baby boomers right now in 2015? Well, we're redefining work and retirement. Lots of us are continuing to work, looking at phased retirement, starting second careers. Caregiving is becoming a bigger issue, whether it's for aging parents, but more so probably for spouse or siblings. And so what we're looking at in the county is, could we have more respite care, more support groups? And Jennifer's going to talk a bit more about that as we go along. But the real issue is housing options when people want to downsize. We're not going to see the same kind of Sun Belt exodus that our parents had. We're not going to see people moving away because they want to stay near family and friends. They want to stay near their church or places that they volunteer. But they will move to find the right kind of housing. And I know that Lori sent you an article along with the item for today, but Saturday, New York Times, renovation versus relocation and retirement. So this is an issue I think that all of us need to be getting serious about in Carver County. So this is a continuum of housing that I actually put together about 7 years ago, and it still holds true. What you have in your city is a lot of single-family homes. And then we move over to senior housing apartments, assisted living, and skilled nursing. That's kind of the continuum across the top. The average age of people going into assisted living facilities is mid-80s. So for a 69-year-old baby boomer, we're talking about 15 years. So if you want to keep the residents, what you might want to do is move down the page here to look at single-family housing. Once again, we're talking about ownership, but one of the things that we've done in our county is to try to do some education on universal design and single-floor living, so that folks could be looking for opportunities to stay in Victoria, downsize, and have the kind of housing that they're looking for. So how can we approach this issue together with you? And I think the question is, do you want to have a community where people can age? So we should identify the issues, the services, the supports, and the options. And you already have in place a Victoria for a Lifetime committee who could help to research these issues and advise the city staff and elected officials. And we have both the chair and a couple of members with us today to hear this presentation. I think that housing options, and we've met with Ben to talk a little bit about this, I think that there's some things the Victoria for a Lifetime Committee could do to help you and to help Ben in looking at these issues. One option would be to really do an inventory of the city. How many of these single level or townhouses do you have? Another would be to hold some informal focus groups with their friends and neighbors to get some firsthand anecdotal information about what do people really want, and do they fit the model that we're talking about? I want to briefly talk about what the Carver County Office of Aging has done in the last 8 years, and then I'm going to turn this over to Jennifer. We are the only county in the state of Minnesota that has an Office of Aging, and it was created by the county commissioners back in 2007 to plan for the baby boomers. And what we tried to do is to provide leadership and coordination as well as technical assistance to the cities and other agencies who are going to be planning for this group. So we've done a number of conferences and training sessions on engineering issues for older drivers. In this county, 22% of the roads are county roads, 33% are city streets. So we are looking at what are the issues for crosswalk timing and roundabouts. In addition to that, we've done training on universal design, and what I'm talking about is designed to allow people to live with any kind of a disability in housing, whether it's apartment or a single-family home. So we're talking about no-step entries. We're talking about wider hallways and doorways so they could go down in a wheelchair. We're talking about having the opportunity to have a bedroom and a bathroom on the first floor. And we did training actually for city staff on this, and we would hope to continue that as well. We have done work with CarFit. You've had CarFit activities in the city. We work with the Sheriff's Office on Triad, which is a program to keep seniors safe, and also brought store-to-door grocery delivery. So what we're trying to focus on is a positive image of aging. And I just want to read you a quote, and then I'm going to turn this over to Jennifer. This was at the Massachusetts Gerontology Institute. Within our field of gerontology, it was very much like focusing on disabilities and frailties associated with aging. It would be like discussing young people and only talking about children with special needs. So I think we want to have a new vision of an active aging population in your city that we would keep here as taxpayers and supports to each other.
And unfortunately, along with aging comes dementia and Alzheimer's. And that's a reality that will strike every county across the state. So I want to talk just briefly about the Act on Alzheimer's. This is an initiative out of the Alzheimer's Association. An Act on Alzheimer's is a statewide volunteer-driven kind of grassroots initiative, which is really in place to help Minnesota prepare for dementia and Alzheimer's in their population. So we're looking at the personal, social, and budgetary impacts of this disease. The Act on Alzheimer's has a 4-phase process, which is essentially implementing a toolkit in a community, which brings people together to help this community create a supportive environment for people who are living with dementia. The 4 phases are common for any city, I'm guessing, who've gone through an assessment phase or an assessment process. There's a leadership team that would be put together. This is an action team that really drives the work. There's an assessment of the current strengths and gaps within the community, and then to analyze those issues and develop a plan, and then to take action to pursue the community readiness for dementia. So the Carver County Office on Aging has 3 goals related to the Act on Alzheimer's. We want to educate communities throughout the county about Alzheimer's and dementia. They are different, and they have huge impacts on community, on families. And so we want to make sure that people understand what that is. We will be providing training and educational opportunities for residents, for caregivers, for organizations, for church leaders, for city staff, county staff, anybody who lives with, interacts with, or is caring for somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia. And we want to be able as well to help communities implement this toolkit. This is a process that is comprehensive. There are several communities around the state who've already implemented this. There's a lot of research and technical assistance that is ready to be utilized. But the toolkit really provides a process and tools to prepare a community. And so we are hopeful that the City of Victoria would consider being a community that would implement the Dementia-Friendly Capable Communities Toolkit. We are here to help assist in that process, and it's definitely something that the Victoria Lifetime for Communities would be able to certainly take on as well. So again, we are here, and it's our priority really to identify resources and services, best practices to bring to the city to help residents age in place. And if there are any questions, we can take them now.
Council questions for Katie?
Is there, when you think about the universal design and establishing, whether it's some kind of a development, does that typically take public money to jumpstart that, or are there developers that are looking at these same demographics and looking for a place to locate a facility or a development?
I'd like to say that it's the second. I think that the next step that we're going to take with our universal design work is actually to pull together builders and developers and talk about this because they do see that the demographics are changing, but unfortunately a lot of the focus goes to senior apartments, which is not a good fit in your city. With the home ownership level that you have, people are going to want to invest their equity. And so I think that we could, one of the things we've talked about is pulling together builders and developers for a meeting here to talk about the demographics, to talk about the opportunity, but really to try to focus them on incorporating the universal design features into a condominium building or a townhouse or twin homes, something that would still allow people to own. And when you think about, one of the numbers that I like to think about is, in the state of Minnesota, of the people over 65, 3.4% of the people are in skilled nursing, and 11% are in assisted living. So we're talking about 14 to 15% of the people over 65 are actually in those two kinds of institutions. The rest are out in the community. living in their own homes, aging in their own homes. And so if, that's an opportunity to keep your residents, and we did the profile, you can see you want to keep them as taxpayers, but also in support of your local businesses. But let's look for an option to keep them here as residents.
I mean, thank you, because I mean, it was kind of a softball, because it seems obvious that anybody looking at these numbers would see a pool of resources looking for a place to invest over the next 10 to 15 years. And so the question then is, how do we bring the people who would do the development together with the people who have the transition to that kind of living in their future?
And I think one of the things I mentioned in my remarks is maybe that the Communities for a Lifetime Committee could do some informal focus groups out in the community with their friends, with their neighbors, and start to get a little more specific information about your residents and what they would like, and where they'd like to live. It all puts a nice package together for if we pull the builders and developers together. And people are building this kind of housing around the Twin Cities.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's only anecdotal from my perspective, but I know of a number of people who are relatively well off financially, relatively well educated, who have left the community because they can't find something that appeals to them. And you described in large measure what I think a couple of these people were looking for, and that they fall under the general heading of universal design. That I think somehow the development community doesn't see enough of a sense of urgency to be investing in this type of product. But I tell you, from our perspective, we see it. In fact, that's one of our objectives in our strategic plan, is to explore diversity in housing from a variety of perspectives, and that certainly is one of the perspectives that we're going to take a look at. The other thing I think you suggested, maybe a closer working relationship, Linda, with your group and with the community development director. There ought to be a way that you all could interact to the mutual benefit of all of us. And I guess I'd challenge Ben and you at some point in the near future to visit and see if there aren't ways that you can work collaboratively to the betterment of all of us. Anybody else? Okay, Jacqueline, thank you very much. We'll consider it the first step.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move to the consent agenda, where all items are on the consent agenda are approved with one motion unless any of the council members wish to exclude an item. Does anybody wish to take something out of the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We've approved the consent agenda. Move to donations.
It's a long list tonight. I move that we approve resolution number 1524, a resolution accepting the donations of Excel Energy of $200 to Movies in the Park, Randy Malushnik for $40 for Concerts in the Park, Midwest Dental for $150, T-Ball and Coach Pitch, Victoria Veterinary Care, $100 for Concerts in the Park, Hultgren, Hoxie, and Waukee, $100 for Concerts in the Park, MVEC, $100 for Movies in the Park, Southwest Eye Care, $100 for T-Ball and Coach Pitch, Master Supplements for $100 Concerts in the Park, Scott and Lisa Mannion, $100 for T-Ball and Coach Pitch, Green Kelly Irrigation, $125 for Concerts in the Park, and Chaska Orthodontic Specialists for $100 for Movies in the Park. Thank you to everyone.
Second.
Just let me make a comment. This long list is,
Fabulous.
it really says a lot about our community. It's $100 here and $40 there, and pretty soon it adds up to real money. And it more than the money, it's the reflection of, I think, of our citizens care about what we do as a community, and the community is to be applauded. So, somebody seconded. Somebody second. Jim seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We've accepted the donations with gratitude. The Move to unfinished, unfinished business, the community sculpture.
Tonight, we welcome Deb Zeller and Randy Miller to give us an update on the community sculpture that we've been talking about in conjunction with our centennial celebration. And under that bag, I think Randy has a model for us to look at.
You better have a model.
We better. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, City Manager, and staff. Deb Zeller and I, to my right, came up with a brainstorm during the task force for the 100th anniversary for community sculpture. 2 months later, here we are. Went to the council, I believe, last month for just a review.
Just a minute. Yeah, the mic.
For just a review, we're here to follow through on the conceptual plan of the community sculpture. My plans on May 6th is to present this to the Victoria Business Association for authorization to move forward, for the VBA to approve the concept, and to collect the donations and in-kind giving. There will be no cost to the City of Victoria at all, other than the donation of the land. So, we like to show you the sculpture, and then Deb is going to do the presentation. And I believe in your packet, you probably have the forms, hopefully everybody has seen these.
We've seen those, yes.
Okay. So, Deb and I put this together from local people in Victoria, which is all donated. There's no cost for this. Marquette? Marquette. So I'll just bring it up to Lori, the city manager, and then maybe just pass it around. The concept we took from Discover Victoria, using the V. The waves are for City of Lakes. The trees for City of Parks, and obviously the individuals with the little dog, the community. On the very bottom are the roots of the growth for the City of Victoria. Our plans are two things. The V could be concrete, and everything else would be basically metal or steel. These are all local people from Victoria to Cologne that are willing to do in-kind or donations. So I'm going to turn it over to Deb.
And I'm not really sure what types of questions you might have. I have done a number of public sculptures in the past few years, most recently a large public installation in Hutchinson, Minnesota for the police department. And I wasn't thinking very well when I came. I grabbed my book that I published about that particular public sculpture, and unfortunately it's the one where Sergeant Nagel wrote a nice message to me in the back. Otherwise, I would leave this here for your perusal. But if you would like, I do have another copy of this book that I can make available to give you a feel for what pulling together a community sculpture is like. We went through things like the engineering analysis, the foundation, the businesses in the community that come together to build it. Not only is it a community sculpture, but it builds community, bringing it together.
Roughly how big are you talking, Deb?
That's a really good question. A lot of it will depend on the engineering analysis, where it goes, the materials it's made out of. I see it at least 6 feet tall to the top of the V. The bigger, I think, the more impressive a statement it will make. And a lot of that does depend upon engineering analysis and the community, how they come together.
We're in the process right now of working with the structural engineer for the concept that Deb just spoke about. On Monday, during the Park and Rec, I will be presenting this to the Park and Rec Committee for a concept that possibly this could go in the plaza, Bayfront Plaza, to some point, city-owned property. We'll have to do some soil testing, bore testing, per the engineer. But other than that, I don't see anything that the city would have to be involved other than accepting the donation of the community sculpture. I'd like to give you a timetable. Our goal is to have it possibly for Folk Fest. It's possible, but I'd like to see it definitely be presented to the city this year. So we're looking for, I guess, a conceptual, not approval, but just for any questions on how we're moving forward on this.
Opinions?
Full speed ahead.
Love it.
I think it's a great kind of almost cap on the activity that's been taking place for the last year and really making downtown a destination. So I think it's a great exclamation point for that.
I was just going to say, it's an exclamation point for the 100 years. Well done to think of it, and Deb, it certainly looks like it's well begun.
We've got a good team.
When do you expect to come back again now? Remind us.
Well, I think that all depends. I'll work with Lori, city manager, Ben, obviously, because of the task force. I don't really know the process. The structural engineer and I will be getting together next week to finalize what we need to do on site. But obviously, before we move forward, we'll have to have city approval on a location. My concern, obviously, for tomorrow is that when we present this to the city, that the VBA or donors or in-kind giving people will not have any liability on this. There will be some cost to this to the city tomorrow. That will be general upkeep. It'll be powder coated. I would like to think that we won't have vandalism or any disturbance to the structure, but you don't know. Other than that, there'd be no cost to the city of Victoria.
I think the next time we would see the sculpture before us, we would have a location identified and a long-term maintenance agreement. So we'd get that in place so that when Randy and the committee are soliciting donations and making plans, that those people have confidence that the project is approved to go forward.
Lori, do you have any thoughts on locations, ideas?
Yeah, Randy and Ben and I met and we've walked a bit. Bayfront Park, possibly closer to the Lakeside building so that we don't block some of the great views that we have across the street, is an option. And just, wading into the subjective, I've told Randy, I really see this becoming part of a community landmark. I could see having your family photos taken with this in the background, or a graduating senior using this as, some people have their trombone, some people have their volleyball. This would be, I think, another, I don't want to say prop because that's not fair, but I see it becoming part of the community landscape. But we're going to look at the Bayfront Park. The park committee is going to look at that. And if not, we have a couple other ideas that just need a little bit more discussion.
Other comments? Deb and Randy, we're really lucky to have an artist and what would we call you, Randy, a facilitator to get this thing done. I think this is me a wonderful exclamation point for the 100 years of this city.
Well, we have to thank the city of Victoria. The staff has always been very easy to work with. Without the collaboration from the city on anything that the VBA has done, or individuals for that matter, we wouldn't be here today.
It's a pretty good partnership so far. So.
But thank you for your vision and your initiative.
Thank you. If I may, other than this, I have to give credit to Lennar Homes, if I can. That's also in your packet. For the 4th consecutive year, we've received $5,000 from Lennar Homes to sponsor fireworks.
For
To date,
Volksfest.
that is $20,000 we've
Wow.
received.
That's great.
So Lennar should be complimented for what they've done for us, part of the community. So, thank you.
Good news. Thank you both. Next, we'll have the rezoning of Lake Point.
And I'll ask Community Development Director Ben Landhauser to give the presentation on this item.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Although our subject tonight is more on the rezoning, I was going to give a brief overview of the project as a whole, including the preliminary plat that would be up for consideration at the following council meeting, just so you understand what the rezoning relates to. This slide we've been sharing at most planning commission meetings, and, you know, if we have residents in attendance, just to give them an idea of where we stand in the overall process before a project would move forward with construction. Current step just identifies where we are tonight, discussing the rezoning itself. As I mentioned previously, the preliminary plat would be part of consideration at the following council meeting at the same time as the second reading of the zoning change. The project, as you can probably see in the smaller map here, this is County Road 43 or Church Lake Boulevard. The Ambergate subdivision is located directly south of the parcel that's outlined in yellow. You'd wind through the Ambergate subdivision and up into this very small peninsula almost of a property that's surrounded by wetlands, and even a portion of the property is across the Carl Cry Lake area. Proposal would include a cul-de-sac providing primary access to 13 single-family lots. There would also be 2 common private driveways providing access to 6 of those homes. Just because of the irregular shape of the property itself, this is really the best way of providing access and developing the parcel that still preserves a lot of the natural environment, but allows for capture of some additional lots that wouldn't otherwise be possible. The area in gray that kind of surrounds this would be the wetland buffer areas that have a bio-treatment facility and detention pond in this location here that is kind of a void from the wetland buffer. I know that there's been discussion already of the trunk water main project that has already started. It's up to this project that's being connected into the Ambergate development would help facilitate the storage and booster station in the Rhapsody development. And then sewer would be brought to the property, gravity sewer from the Ambergate development to serve these 13 lots. Zoning is very consistent with what was done in Ambergate. So you have 25-foot front yard setbacks, 30-foot rear, 10-foot side. And there was some discussion at the planning commission meeting that as the project may move forward, some additional consideration may need to be made for a few of these lots related to landscaping because you have the rear of homes now backing to the sides, and there with 10-foot side yard setbacks, there may be a different expectation of kind of what that dynamic is between those different property owners. But tonight before you is just the first reading of the zoning, so staff would certainly recommend approval of the first reading in title only. I'd be happy to answer any questions. We also have Terry Hartman here representing Hartman Communities, the applicant.
Terry, do you wish to say anything? Council, questions, comments?
Are these straight 10-yard, 10-foot side yard setbacks, or is it a 10, 25, 10 minimum, 25 total? How's it?
As it's proposed, it'd be 10 on either side, total of 20, but 10-foot minimum on either side.
Or is that the limit as far as what can be put in with this number of lots? Is there any ability to increase that at all?
Terry Hartman, Hartman Communities. That's the maximum, how we're able to provide the maximum footprint with a housing stock that matches the Ambergate product. Not everything will fill up that entire pad, so this is kind of the ultimate size that we would need. Most will not fill it up completely, especially with the irregular shape of the lots.
Just kind of a worst case.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Somebody want to make a motion to approve the first reading?
I move that we approve the first reading of the zoning change for Lake Point in title only.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We've approved the rezoning, the first reading, rather. Arbor Woods, the second edition, the preliminary plat, final plat, and PUD.
I'll take this one also. This request is for approval of the preliminary plat, final plat, kind of in a one-step, but also includes a clarification to the previous resolution that was passed related to the zoning the plan unit development of the property, that it only clarified a certain number of lots. This slide again just identifies where we are in the process. The property noted here, location map. This is Bavaria Boulevard, 82nd Street, if you'd like to refer to it in county roads, 13 and 18, thank you. The site had previously been discussed when the first edition of Arbor Woods that you can see here with the 15 single-family lots off of Arbor Woods Road. There was discussion about the potential for expansion of the Emerald Crest facility. The property owner has reached out to Emerald Crest, and there's been no indication of interest in trying to expand that facility, so the developer is moving forward with the other option of providing 3 single-family lots that would be accessed from a common private driveway. That would be connected to Arbor Woods Road, so again, we're sticking with the same primary access off of 82nd Street. The homes, I'll go to this. Realize this is maybe a little bit difficult to see just because it's black and white, but all of the homes drain, the rear yards drain to the north, would funnel over to that existing detention pond that has been sized to accommodate the additional stormwater treatment. Front yards drain down the common private driveway, get collected into this intake catch basin, and also are directed down to that existing detention facility. Landscaping plan, which was also part of the tree preservation of the first development, I have on this slide, if you were to compare the two, we didn't know necessarily floor plans that were going to be available when the first edition went through, but the landscaping is identical with the addition of 2 front yard trees that are located in kind of the teal or blue in the front of those lots. I'll be short on my presentation. We do have representation here of the civil engineer involved in the project representing Meridian Land Development. I'd be happy to answer any questions as well.
Questions? I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 1525 related to the preliminary plat, final plat, and PUD for Arbor Woods, second edition.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We've approved it. Thank you. Deer Run Street and drainage improvements. I guess that's Kara.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. At the last City Council meeting, I provided an update on the 78th Street and Cochia improvements that are scheduled for 2015. Included in your packet was the capital improvement plan map that was presented to the City Council back in 2014. The costs associated with the improvements shown in each year is what is included in the city's long-term financial plan and the city's 5-year capital improvement plan. So in 2015, we were proposing to do 78th and Cochia in addition to part of the Deer Run neighborhood. With 78th and Cochia potentially being delayed, depending on what happens with the easement acquisition, I was here tonight, initially, would have been here to get authorization to do the feasibility study for the improvements for this part of Deer Run. But we're proposing that we have the feasibility study completed for essentially all of the streets in the entire Deer Run neighborhood that that haven't yet been improved. So Woodstone was completed back in 2007, and the 14th edition was constructed probably about 1999, 2000, somewhere in there. So that road will need an overlay at some point in the future, but has the full city sand section underneath it, so doesn't need to be rebuilt. So essentially what I'm talking about is combining what had been planned for 2016 into the feasibility study for the 2015 improvements. In the event that 78th Street and Cochia doesn't move forward, we may find that it makes more financial sense to do this neighborhood all at once this year. It would be less disruptive to the neighbors, and depending on the way the financing works out, it just might make more sense from a cost perspective. So the feasibility study would provide us with knowing what the probable costs are, and then I can work with the finance manager and the finance committee to see what makes sense relative to getting this street improved and these streets improved between 2015 and 2016. Specific to Deer Run, all of these streets are in this relatively same poor condition. If you haven't had an opportunity to drive through there lately, you'll find that the roads are not in great shape. There's a lot of subgrade failure that we see with sections of pavement popping out. So the planned improvement for this neighborhood is to reclaim the existing pavement and base that's there to create a new base course. And then we would put a new lift of asphalt over the top of the streets. We would replace sections of curb that are holding water. So in areas where you would see water ponding sometime after a rainfall, we would be replacing those segments of curb. And then we would also be adding drain tile to both sides of the street and extending drain tile service connections into all of the lots. Essentially, this is the same type of improvement that we completed back in 2007 for Woodstone Drive. So it's a more cost-effective alternative than the complete reconstruction that we need to do on streets like 78th and Cochia. Because these neighborhoods already have a storm sewer system in place and curb and gutter in place, back in 2007, we decided to try this alternative improvement because it's less costly. And so now we've had the opportunity to monitor that improvement for the last 8 years. It's holding up really well, which you would note if you go and drive Woodstone Drive on your way to the streets that are in less shape. So we are seeking authorization for the feasibility study. I think it would take us about a month to complete that. We would be meeting with the neighbors towards the end of that process, and then also working with the finance department and finance committee. Simultaneously, we'll be continuing to work on the easement acquisition for 78th and Cochia, so in about a month's time, hope to have more information about all of it. And with that, I will take questions.
Thank you. The obvious, answer is, well, let's do it. We've got these roads planned. They're a year apart, and so anything you can combine typically gets more cost effective. I mean, that would be my initial thought. So I guess I'm just looking for confirmation that the money we spend this year reduces what we spend next year in terms of feasibility work.
Correct. So we'd be looking, essentially what we're talking about is combining 2015 and 2016 maybe into 1 year or phasing it over 2 years. And so Kelly would be looking at what the financial implications are of how we do that. What we're often typically looking at when I start to split these into years is what the impact is on, for the most part, we issue bonds for this work, so you want to try to get a minimum bonding amount so you're not spending the cost to get that, to go through that bonding process for a relatively small project. So if we were to take out 78th and Cochia for this year and try to only do this project, it's less than $1 million project, which then starts to make the cost of issuing that debt to be high compared to what you're doing for a project. So we can take a look at whether we can afford to do all three in 1 year if this easement comes forward. Otherwise, we could possibly shift 78th and Cochia to next year and still be within what we had planned in the CIP for this year. So,
And then I guess the second part of that is the duration, if you will, or the validity of the feasibility study work. If for whatever reason it couldn't be completed this year, something more pressing comes up next year, how long before the information becomes dated and no longer valid and would have to be redone?
In a perfect scenario, I like to do it a full year before construction. So completing it now for construction in 2016 is a nice process to have in place because it gives us a little bit more time to work through issues. This project's pretty straightforward, so that's why I'm not concerned about doing it yet in 2015. But usually we look at about 2 years. The part that becomes out of date is the cost. So if we did this feasibility study now in 2015 and we started talking about not doing the improvements till 2017, we may want to revisit the cost portion of it before we hold a public improvement hearing because we may need to adjust the cost to reflect whatever the current market is doing for construction costs.
Would you anticipate that the scope of work could change as well, just due to the additional degradation of 2 years of?
The concern that I have with all the streets that we're trying to do reclaim and overlays on is not letting them get so far gone that we have to switch to what I would refer to as a partial reconstruction project. I haven't driven them yet this spring. That's something we would do as part of the feasibility process to just make sure things still look the same. But that would become my concern if the council were talking about delaying these roads beyond 2016. They're not in great shape. And the longer it takes, then we might be needing to do more subgrade correction work to deal with areas that have had water pooling in them for years.
Okay, thank you.
Karen, I might have missed it, the cost of the feasibility study?
It would be done in-house, so my assistant and I would be working on it. I'm putting it at roughly about $8,000, depending on how much time we spend with neighbors.
And it is possible that the entire Deer Run neighborhood could be done yet this year?
Yeah, it's a relatively quick construction process, so we don't need nearly as much time to complete the construction that we do for like a 78th and Cochia type project.
Other questions? Joe?
Yeah, thanks. Kara, I believe we had flooding in this neighborhood last year, and we were talking about possibly redesigning some of the drainage systems or the culverts and all of that. Is that going to be incorporated into this?
Yeah, the piece of the flooding that correlates with this work is where the water passes under North Fairway Point. So suddenly I thought I had my south and north backwards. Like we're looking at me like the other way. The consultant we have working on that study has completed the technical work. We have a meeting with the watershed district scheduled for Thursday. So as part of that project, if we need to upsize this culvert, we'd be doing it in conjunction with the street project. That upsizing would be funded out of stormwater utility funds, so that's something we can add after the feasibility study is complete. The feasibility study is primarily for the purpose of determining the assessment amounts, and we'd be using stormwater funds for that upsizing. The rest of the work that we're talking about potentially occurring is downstream of this area, or within golf course property itself.
The golf course is obviously a significant owner of the frontage onto a number of these roads. How are they treated in terms of assessments and cost sharing?
They are assessed as if they had houses abutting the property. So we'll end up coming up with a comparable unit assessment for areas where they have land that fronts the street that's being improved. The same thing happened with the 2007 street project, so they were assessed back when Woodstone Drive was improved. So they'll be included in our neighborhood meetings and informed just like everybody else.
Thank you.
Kara, if we go forward with this assessment on both sections, my understanding is that this is an either-or thing, that at some point down the road we'll make a decision of moving ahead with both sections of Deer Run or doing one and Cochia. When do you have enough information to make that decision?
I'm thinking that should be in about a month to 6 weeks is when we're going to need to make that decision about how we're going to go forward. So that's why we'll be working with the finance department between now and then to make sure the council has all the information you need. We'll get to the point where we're kind of at a drop dead date for 2015 where we need to make a decision. So, by mid to late May, we need to know what we're doing.
Knowing what you know now, if everything stays the same, what direction does it look like it's going?
I haven't heard back from my last conversation with the residents on the easement acquisition, so I would like to hear back on that before I predict.
Well, I know from personal observation that there's at least one of those roads in Deer Run that really does need work. Any other?
Second that.
Another personal observation.
I haven't had the opportunity to drive those roads. Yeah.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 15-26, a resolution authorizing the completion of a feasibility study for Deer Run Street and drainage improvements.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We've approved the feasibility study. We move on to new business, the fleet purchases and replacement.
I'll ask Ann Monkey to give this report, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening, the request before you is the purchase of a new truck, pickup truck, and the addition of a pickup truck in the Public Works Department. Currently, the Public Works Department has 8 full-time employees and usually 1 or 2 seasonal employees, and we have 6 trucks to try to navigate through the system. We use those trucks for snow plowing, pulling equipment, pulling mowers, bobcats, street maintenance, stormwater maintenance, and then we've also got a truck specifically that's set up for the water and sewer department. The city has not added a new pickup truck to the fleet since 2007. Which if you go back in time, that's about 8 years. And we have added 2 new employees in the past 3. So it's making it a little bit more difficult to navigate out in the field without doubling up people in pickup trucks. The purchase of a new truck would be a 1-ton truck. It would have a plow equipment, a dump box, lights, the standard equipment that we put on all our trucks. That would be the brand new piece that we would like to add to the fleet. One of the things that we also do, we tend to leave a pickup or have a pickup available for the fire department in large events. So they can plow their own drive if we're out in the field. And then also if they need to get out into a location, one of our public works and firefighters would be leading the charge with that, increasing the safety and timing that the fire department gets to some of these events. The second pickup would be a replacement pickup for one of our current fleet. It's a 2005 Chevy that has about 65,000 miles on it. Over the course of its life, it's had about $7,000 in repairs, and most recently, a refurbished transmission was put in back in 2013. The wear and tear from plowing is usually one of the first things that goes in the truck, the transmission. So we're experiencing that in about 8-9 years with the vehicle, just because of the difficulty with snow plowing and the wear and tear it has on it. But as we move forward, it's likely we're going to have to replace the transmission in that vehicle for about $4,700, and it would be a refurbished transmission. So that would increase the cost. We do have some minor costs with some of the front end steering and also some snowplow costs at about $1,500. With a new vehicle, we'll see increased gas mileage from one of the older ones, saving us about $2,200 over the life of the vehicle. We did go out and get state bids for both vehicles, both from Lenz and Chevrolet for the pickups and Aspen equipment, for the plow and accessories. One of the other things to note, if we decide to keep this vehicle, we're looking at about $8,000 over the next 2 years to keep that in the fleet, between the expenses the currently need right now and anticipated expenditures with minor maintenance over the next couple of years that would be required on it. One other item other items that I think are important to consider, the increased cost of a vehicle in 2 years to purchase new, the reduced trade-in value of the current vehicle that we have, and of course the unknown expenses with aging vehicles in the fleet. So with that, I am recommending that we purchase a new vehicle for the fleet and also replace one of our vehicles in the fleet. Both trucks from Lenz and Chevrolet at a cost of $54,500 roughly, and the purchase of a dump box, plows, and accessories from Aspen Equipment, a total of $26,041. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions?
Given that the truck is, the one that we're looking at replacing is 10 years old and it only has 65,000 miles and it went through a transmission a couple of years ago already, and it's something you anticipate or we've experienced before and anticipate continuing, I'm wondering if you've looked at alternatives, done any research to see if other manufacturers' products stand up better. I think we have a completely Chevrolet fleet, and I don't know if there's any better alternatives, but I'm wondering if you've looked into that.
Yes, one of the things that we've looked at in particular with transmission, a lot of times the guys are in quite a bit of a hurry, so they don't come to a full stop before they shift. The newer vehicles actually don't allow you to do that anymore, and the Chevrolets have that within their new truck line. So they've got to come to a complete stop before they go forward or reverse on it.
I know this is a kind of a crystal ball question, so sorry, it's going to be unfair. Do you anticipate better life, and if so, how much? These are 10 years old. How long would you anticipate the life of a new truck with these improved features?
It really, with anything, I think it really depends on, our winters are very tough, difficult on these vehicles, because they're primarily a winter, snow plowing, salting. So that's the toughest part, I think, on these vehicles. So, I mean, based on what I have seen in my years of this, a 10-year life is not unexpected. I think it just depends on each vehicle that we take a look at them to determine. I mean, you'll get a lemon once in a while. So one of those, we've just going to have to take a look at each vehicle independently. But I would continue to recommend that we keep our 10-year life on vehicle trade-in and then evaluate each one as they come forward.
Okay. I guess one other question then. It looks like there's two different, there's an extended cab and a regular cab in here. And if I'm reading this correctly, the extended cab is $25,591 after the trade-in allowance. Is that correct? So it started off at a little over or a little under 34,000, or about 34,000. Is that right?
Correct.
And I'm curious why, if we're trying to get the same number of trucks as we have employees, why we need an extended cab, and maybe we should save the $4,000 or $5,000 and buy two regular cab trucks.
Well, the 1 ton does not have the body. It's just doesn't, because that one will have the box on it, so it doesn't have the regular pickup features where the extended cab does. So it's just the chassis, because we'll be adding the dump box. So in terms of price, there's minimal difference between the extended cab and the regular cab. One of the nice things we do, I mean, a lot of times the guys have to go to training, and instead of taking 2 trucks, they can then take just one vehicle and put 3 to 4 of them in one car.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other comments or questions?
So just one comment, and it has to do with the statement of the financial impact. You have done a great job from a financial standpoint, keeping a balanced budget. I thank you for that. Rather than a statement that we'll review budgeted items in the CIP to figure out where we're going to, prefer to have you come forward with a plan that I'm going to save that money from here. So going forward, if you could do that, I'd appreciate it.
Yep, we'll do that.
Thank you.
We've got a couple yet of proposed budgeted items that we'll look at trying to save that dollar amount, so.
Thank you.
But to Jim's point, you are committing to find the savings.
Absolutely. I'll do my best.
Somebody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of a new 1-ton pickup with plow attachments and box, and to purchase a new 3/4-ton pickup with plow attachments, plow and attachments with trade-in. That's agenda statement 15-65. With the total cost not to exceed $80,610.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? We've approved two trucks. Reports of the city manager.
Have an update tonight on the band shell, which I will ask Ann Monkey to give as well. I'll add that since Victoria's Market has announced that it's opening shortly here, the question that I now get when I'm out in the community is, what's going on with the bandstand? So Ann is going to provide us with an update on that tonight.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you know, the private donors and the city have been working for the past 3 years on getting a bandstand to be located just behind me towards the lake. The process has involved with some type of approval through several different governmental agencies, Three Rivers Park District, the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District, the Hennepin Regional Rail Authority, and also the Metropolitan Council. So it's been an interesting process to navigate. The donors have finally gotten the rough estimate for the construction of the bandstand. It's in that $400,000 range, with the anticipated actual spending or donation from them to be about $350,000. There are some work that they are still pursuing. They're getting some money from Minnehaha Creek Watershed District. And the donors will also be trying to get some money from the legacy funding at the state to help with the project. The city will also be contributing some dollars for the stormwater management of the project. This project actually has allowed us to move forward with something we've been wanting to do for quite some time. We've got a storm pipe that is actually from downtown running directly into the lake. So this project gives us the opportunity to clean that up a little bit. So we'll be proposing to use stormwater funding for that. We also have electrical stubbed with the construction of this building. We put the electrical in to serve the bandstand, and it's stubbed in right to the edge of the building. But we'll be needing a permit from the Hennepin Regional Rail Authority to go underneath the trail and down to the bandstand. So that's another anticipated cost that the city will provide for this project. The next steps in the process, the donor has submitted the plans to the city staff for building permit review. We have a meeting actually set up with the builder, city staff, and the donor this week to talk about, the process. How are they going to get vehicles in? If there are any changes to the plan, how we're going to need to address those. One of the project itself, we've got helical piers being driven into the ground. So that's the one question mark yet until we get in and start doing some drilling is to determine if the soils are suitable or at what depth the soils are suitable. We've only got soil borings at about 16 feet, and those from a engineering standpoint looked pretty good, but we'll know more as we continue to move forward with that project. The other item we talked about in our last meeting with the donor was naming of that area. And because of the large donation that they are making, the request has been named, or has been made to name it the Charleston Thune Community Park. We do have a park and facility naming policy in place. I plan to take that to the Park and Rec Committee on Monday, and then bring that back with their recommendation to you in either the next one or two city council meetings. But I'll have that ready to go as well. I did include the plans, the final rendition of the plans in the packet this evening for you. Those have been forwarded on to Three Rivers Park District, so I'm waiting for comments from them. I think the other only outstanding issues will be the permit from the Regional Rail Authority and the Met Council with the manhole. We've got to lower it, raise it. So those are the two outstanding issues that I'm aware of right at this point in time, because we do have the permit from Minnehaha Creek Watershed District and also approval from Three Rivers Park District. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
See, that was my number one question, given Senator Ortman's previous comment about scope creep, is what jurisdiction does the Met Council have over whether or not the city of Victoria has a ban shell?
They have a main sewer line that runs right through this site that by their rules, they have easement through that property. So we've got to stay X number of feet away from that. They're fine with it, but we need, because of where we are going to land right by their line, they still need to have some say in the process, so.
Thank you.
And in the write-up, in your narrative, you referred to the name as Charleston.
Charleston.
Is it no T?
No T.
Right. Other questions?
But there is not a hyphen in there, so I need to take that out.
I was just going to comment that Charleston is the Lynn Charleston who founded what is now Eaton Hydraulics in Eden Prairie.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Just a little history there.
So what are you looking from us tonight? Nothing, this is just.
If there's any questions, comments, feedback, we're moving forward now. Another step is being made, so.
Well, Lori, when you get those questions, you can say we're moving forward.
So moving forward, when will it be built?
Builder,
Will we be having concerts there this summer?
Sorry, I didn't mean to ask a difficult question.
no, the builder indicates about 3 months. The beams, the main beams, the laminated beams in the front take about 6 weeks to get. So they asked me today if they should be ordered, and I said, go ahead. So we're hoping maybe by Volksfest, weather dependent.
Thank you.
Using that crystal ball a lot tonight.
Just think though, again, we're talking about a sculptor, a city hall, public works building, if one more 2015 event, that would be a spectacular addition to the year. All right. Nothing else on there? The school district.
Thank you.
You want to report on, we had a meeting with the school district.
Yes, thank you. A couple of things. When we put together our citizen survey, we knew that one of the requests that we get, whether it be staff or council, is residents asking whether there are any plans for a community pool in Victoria's future. And so when we crafted our community survey questions back in December, we included a question, which I've copied here in the staff report, asking residents to tell us, sort of throw out as many as 3 of these projects that you would like to see us explore. And we will be getting the results of that community survey. We'll be hearing those at our work session on May 11th. But I did want to report on that subject that we received 523 surveys. I don't know if you recall, but I said I hope we'll get 300 to 400 out of our 1,200. So that puts us at a 46% response rate. And I really want to thank everyone that got a survey and took the time to complete that and send that back. I think that's just a resounding endorsement that people are interested in providing feedback and in where this community is going. So looking forward to seeing what those results are and to reviewing those and using them as part of our decision-making process.
You said May 11th?
May 11th, yes.
Can I assume that the time to return surveys is now closed?
It is, but it will soon. The link will be published this week on our website. So that was the scientific version of collection. For those that didn't receive a survey but were interested in participating, or as I said before, maybe husband got home first and filled it out and the spouse would like the opportunity to provide feedback, it will be available on our website, and those results will be shared with the council as well. They are kept separate because there's certain value in the scientific version. Basically, we will be able to say with a 96% confidence rate that if everyone in the community had had the opportunity to take the survey, that these results reflect how they would have felt. Whereas obviously with the web-based survey, you're selecting to participate. But both versions have value, and we're glad we can offer that opportunity. So look for that. We'll be sending out some emails and posting it. That opportunity will be coming. And so at our strategic planning process earlier this year, continuing with the idea that a community pool may be something that's desired, we also know that School District 112 is contemplating a referendum for the fall, and there are a number of items that they may choose to ask voters about, and one of those would be a community pool. And so late last month, the mayor and I met with Superintendent Jim Bauk and Dee Dee Caring, the Director of Finance and Operations, to talk about what work the district has done so far. As you know, they have a task force on facilities that's been working for several years on these issues. And the board is beginning to contemplate what a referendum in the fall might look like and whether a pool might be part of that. They have not reached a decision on that, but they have done quite a bit of work into looking at if they would go forward with a question on a pool, what do they need in order to justify that to voters? What does that look like to the school board? And so in the staff memo, I've outlined a number of items that they've come up with, and I think I'll just tick those off for the benefit of those that don't have it in front of them. A pool should be available during the school day to be utilized as a teaching station. There should be easy access to middle school students without busing. They're looking at an 8 swimming lane, 1 diving well, seating for 300 spectators in terms of size. The estimated cost at this point is $6.7 million. They know that the existing pool at Chaska Middle School East can serve both middle schools east and west. And Pioneer Ridge Middle School was designed for the addition of a future pool. And they also know that they have strong demand from the high school teams and the West Express Swimming School, as well as some desire to incorporate lifelong water activities into the middle school curriculum. So looking at those items as sort of where they're starting in terms of what might be a good location for a community pool, they conducted their own citizen survey. They did a phone survey with Morris Leatherman, who you might recall as Decision Resources. They've done quite a bit of work with that firm in the past. And they received results of that work late last week. The preliminary feedback that we were able to see was in favor of going forward with the community pool. One thing that I noted from the FAQs that the district provided is that there's some perception in the community that a pool has been voted down in the past, and it has definitely been discussed, but there has not been a referendum that included the issue of a pool. So talking with the superintendent and Dee Dee Caring, some conclusions that initially I've come to is that the pool that the Victoria community envisioned and what the school district was outlining for us may not be compatible. The school district at this point is not planning for a space that would include things that we might be interested, like open swimming hours, a splash pad, water slide. And so we talked about exploring what our partnership opportunities are. And at this point, it seems that the district needs and our needs may not be aligning at this moment. That's not to say that we couldn't do work to try to see if we could get there. But we also have looked into, there are other public-private partnerships that have been successful in terms of providing a pool amenity. Many communities have partnered with a private, what I'm calling here, a corporate fitness club, a YMCA, a hotel. And so I bring this item up to get some feedback about what direction the city council would like to see us take with this, if anything at this point. You may wish to see how the citizen survey comes back and take it up again in the future. I have attached the 2015 Finance and Facilities meeting agenda items. A number of these dates included have already passed, but you will see that coming up later this week on April 16th, They're going to visit a number of these items, and over the course of about 4 meetings between now and May 21st, the school district will be making decisions about what those referendum questions look like, what's included, et cetera. And then we also visited, I'm going to change tracks a moment and then we can take some questions. We also visited about Victoria Elementary School. The 112 school board was out at Victoria Elementary in the fall of 2014 holding a listening session. And one of the concerns that was very prevalent at that time was that Victoria residents would like to see their elementary students stay at Victoria Elementary and not have a boundary at this time that would bus them to a school in Chaska or Chanhassen. And so the school district took that feedback and sort of made some adjustments to make sure that that would be possible in the short term. And in terms of accommodating it, I don't want to say the long term, but maybe the middle term, they are looking at, in addition to Victoria Elementary School, would be 10 to 12,000 square feet, which it translates into about 5 or 6 classrooms, accommodate an additional 150 students, and accomplish that goal of keeping Victoria residents at Victoria Elementary, maybe not forever, but for what I'm calling the middle term. They also, the school district owns 20 acres north of Holy Family High School. They are retaining ownership of that property as a site for a potential future elementary school. 20 acres is about the right size for an elementary school. It can accommodate the amenities that they like to see included. And they would look at that as an opportunity to accommodate future Victoria growth as well as growth in Northwest Chaska. So I would take questions as you have them.
Lori, I'm wondering if there's more information that can be gathered from the district. What's the present capacity of Victoria Elementary School? And I'm just going to rattle a bunch of things off that come to mind. What's the current capacity? What's the current percentage of students that come from Victoria versus those that are bused in? Because I know there's quite a few, I guess, that are bused in today. What's the projected growth in students from Victoria? I'm trying to understand why we need to add 5 or 6 classrooms when I have neighbors that are teachers. My wife is a substitute teacher, and they're actually cutting back on teaching hours next week because the enrollment's going down.
Oh.
So how?
Sure.
I don't understand.
Yeah, they do have a nice presentation that I can see if we can either provide in the packet or have Dee Dee come out and talk about, because we did talk about a number of those issues with them.
And this relates back further to, we do not have any representation on the school board in the city of Victoria. And how are those positions apportioned? I mean, it doesn't sound like it's like the state legislature where we have districts where you have to elect someone from the district. Is that even a possibility? I mean, right now we're being taxed and we have no representation.
A ward system is theoretically possible for a school district, just as it would be for the city council. Chaska, for instance, the city of Chaska operates under a ward system. So in that example, the mayor of Chaska is elected by all of the residents, and then you vote for your city council member according to the ward that you live in contrast to Victoria, where the mayor and all 4 council members are elected by the general population, not according to geographical boundaries. My understanding is that school boards can choose to operate under a ward system. I'd have to do some research to find out if any of our neighboring districts do. But to your point, the school district 112 does not. Anyone can run from anywhere within the district, and then election is general.
I don't have a solution in mind at this point, but something, we need to do something, and I think this is merits maybe a workshop discussion for the council. We need to find a way to gain better representation and a better relationship with the school districts. I don't feel we have that right now. And it starts with having representation on the board, and maybe we need to recruit citizens to run. But this is something that has to change. The growth of Carver County is west, And the growth of the district is Chaska and Chanhassen centric, and that has to change.
I can kind of build on that point, number of points, and again, it's a little bit of a stream of consciousness here. Each time I talk to residents and each time I hear about sort of the activities within the school district, I get more troubled by it, starting with the fact that we don't have representation. And we're 30 days away from some decisions being made, and I get the sense that we're just now learning what's been discussed for probably a lengthy period of time. And that to me is just wrong from a number of reasons, and not the very least of which is that we're the ones paying for it. Our residents have no voice. A fairly high, over 50% of your property tax is going to the school district. And, you know, the perception that I get from citizens, and I can't offer them anything to disagree with it, is that Chanhassen and Chaska divvy up the spoils. They decide where they want stuff. And I'd like to see Dr. Bauk come in here and tell us what his 20-year plan is. I mean, we've got population projections. We know where the growth is coming in Carver County and ISD 112 boundaries. They should have some idea of what, you know, as those demographics change and certain sections of the county and the school district age out and the new development and the younger families, where that population shift is happening. And I'm imagining these two pools end up being at the east end of where everybody who's using them has to live, So I'd like to see something that shows what their overall facility plan is for the next 10 to 20 years and where Victoria fits in that plan. Again, we become the largest city by geographic size in Carver County within the next 15 years, and we have one elementary school. And, I know there's also a dome, an athletic dome that's being considered, and they're putting it all, their ideal plan, as I understand it, is for that to be on the football field behind Chaska Middle School West. So again, all of the kind of center, the hub of ISD 112 is at the east end of the district and is growing as opposed to moving and following where the population is likely to be. So I would like to see, a more robust conversation at least with Dr. Bauk, and again, longer term, some greater level of influence and participation in the board.
I'd like to add to that I know in years past it was presented that there was some animosity with the city of Victoria over the relationship that was created as a result of the partnership with the Recreation Center. If that needs a reset, then we need to reset it, because I'm tired of being penalized for an agreement that was made many years ago.
I think it's very clear, Lori, from the drivers that you listed here, they're not even considering a pool outside of the current Chaska area. Just by right of sort of saying it needs to be available to middle school students without busing. Well, all the middle schools are in Chaska. And they've already got a spot, it sounds like, at Pioneer Ridge picked out. So it doesn't sound like there was even potentially any consideration to go outside of that. Maybe there is, but just from the drivers listed, it looks very clear that, it's all there. And to some degree, though, I do sort of agree with your statement about maybe they're not compatible. And I think just back to the agreement around the playground over in the Laketown area, where, again, usage, even though it's for children, usage is very, it's not compatible there. So, again, there is some issue there anyways with that. But I do think just from the drivers you listed, it's very clear where they intend to look at the potential for a pool if that should come to pass. I agree that I'd like to see what the results say from the survey. I think that would be good information to have at hand, and to see what else shows up in the comments. And I do think, as already asked for, we should probably have a sit-down meeting with them and start some discussion. It sounds like that's, this city, whenever it's put its mind to it in terms of working with developers or business, local businesses or anything like that to improve relationships, has done a really good job of that. And this sounds like one of them that we have to work on.
Ominous silence. Any other comments or questions about the school district? We'll get Dr. Bauk and Dee Dee, and they should come.
I appreciate the feedback, and certainly this is good feedback and good things for us to take and work on. The mayor and I attend a bi-monthly meeting with the 112 school district and the school leaders, and are invited to special presentations from time to time. So there's definitely the opportunity to expand upon that and continue to build.
I think in the past, Dr. Bauk has come and spoken to the council as an element of building support for past referendums, and I think he should understand that getting that support may have some conditions on it, some greater consideration for the citizens of Victoria.
Yeah, just thinking out loud, I'm thinking we need to try to find a way to get him in here to start that conversation before he's here for the building support agenda item.
Correct. It would be great to be able to do that.
And while the comments that just came across here could be considered by the school district to be rather negative, maybe they were intended to be so, but that's not the intention of the discussion to be held. Speaking for myself, I'm here to listen. I'm frustrated with the current relationship. It's not right. It can be better, and we need to listen to what their needs are. We need to see them reciprocate.
Be a good question to pose to them, and I have the relationship that exists over the financing of the rec center and the ice arena and all. He maintains that any of their current plans are not at all affected by that relationship. I mean, Lori went through some of their building plans. When you hear him talk, they all make logical sense, at least from their perspective. So I think we need to get to Jim and I guess Thomas' point. Let's get Dr. Bauk in here specific, and before he comes for the referendum.
I agree.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I do not have any additional reports tonight.
Council members, anything?
Oh, Your Honor.
Mr. Attorney, you have.
Mayor, thank you. No.
Take a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.